G'day, it's Pete here and I'm back for a featured lesson. Now today I wanted to talk about a convention called Gazilli, or Modified Gazilli, or the Witch. It's a bit confusing. Back when I learned it, Gazilli meant something a bit more complicated, but there's a more simple version that most people use and just called Gazilli, but it's probably Modified Gazilli. And back when I learned it, it was called the Witch. Anyway, it's either Gazilli, Modified Gazilli, or the Witch. You can pick which one you want to call it. But we'll just jump straight into it and see what it is. Talk through what problem is there in the bidding that it's trying to solve, how does it solve it, and look at some example hands. So first of all, I'll talk about just the general area where there's a bit of a problem about how you actually bid your hands. So let's say that we're playing standard or 2/1. Either of these systems would use it. And you open a spade and your partner bids a no trump. Okay, so what did we do with this hand? We've got 16 points. Now, most people play bidding at the 2 level is weak or invitational, and jumping to the 3 level is game forcing. So this isn't game forcing. I've only got 16 points, so if my partner's got 6, I just want to stay low, but if they're up around 9 or 10 points, I want to be in game. So I'm just an invitational hand, so I've just bid 2 diamonds. Now, what this would leave is your partner then has a dilemma of should they raise to 3 diamonds with a good fit? So if they've got 8 or 9 points, you want them to be raising to 3 diamonds to protect against this hand, so that you can then bid 3 no trumps possibly and still get to game when you had these invitational hands like this. So with your invites, we have to go low, we have to bid 2 diamonds, and then partner has to choose do they raise or not with their good hand. So if we look at a similar hand, but this time we've only got 12 points, and here when it goes spade, pass, and no trump, and we bid 2 diamonds, we're weak. We have no chance of game. And if partner raises to 3 diamonds, we might go off. But it might be okay because the opponents might compete to 2 hearts, and then we're going to bid to 3 diamonds anyway. But it's usually right to say, do the opponents bid to 2 hearts first and push us up, rather than just raising to 3 diamonds. So basically the issue here is we've got really weak hands that bid the same way as these invitational hands, and then partner has to look at their hand and work out are they minimum or maximum, and if they're maximum they raise, and sometimes you go off if you're the minimum hand. So if they lean towards passing, then you might miss a game. And also there's times where partner is a maximum hand and you have the invitational hand, but you don't have a fit. So maybe you can squeak home 3 no trumps, but you don't actually get there because when you they might just choose to keep it low because they haven't found a fit. So there's one of these awkward bidding problems where your weak hands and your invitational hands fall together, and then it's a tough bidding problem for the 1 no trump bidder to work out how they actually go about solving it. So another one is like this. So previous one was with spades and diamonds. This time we've got spades and hearts. So again, if we bid a spade, partner bids a no trump. This time we've got 16 points, a 5, 4, 3, 1, a pretty good one, but still not quite good enough to game force, but there's still lots of times that 3 no trumps might roll home, or also 4 hearts could easily make, so there's a lot more chances of game with this one, but you're still not good enough to jump to 3 hearts, so you'd probably just bid 2 hearts here. And again, partner has that same dilemma of whether they raise or not, because your hand could equally be just this sort of hand. Just barely scraping into an opening bid. You got 11 high card points and some good shape, and there's really not any chance of game. And you don't want your partner to raise because you might be going off in 3 hearts. So this is one of the issues of the modern structure, where after you open one of a major and your partner responds a no trump, your weak and invitational hands both overlap, and then there's a bit of guesswork for the responder to work out which hands should they actually raise on. Okay, so this is the issue that Gazilli, or the Witch, is trying to solve and work out how do we actually separate these out, and how do we make separate these out so there's less of a burden on the one no trump responder. So how do they actually do this? So first of all, the situation that this convention applies is after you get one of a major opening and a one no trump response. Okay, so there's a one no trump response to a one of a major opening, not one of a minor, not if you're the overcaller and bid one no trump. Responder can't do it. This convention's only used by the opener after you open one of a major and your partner responds one no trump. Okay, so how do they actually do this? So what they do is, here's another hand, so we open one spade and we get a one no trump response. Okay, so again, this time we've got an invitational hand. The convention tries to separate out the weak hands and the invitational hands. So instead of just having weak or invitational together, it wants to separate it out. So you've got weak hands, invitational hands, and game forcing hands. So you've got 3 different segments. And you want to try and, as opener, break your hand up. Am I a game forcing hand? Am I an invitational hand? Or am I a weak hand? So what it does is it actually swaps the 2 club rebid with the 2 major rebid. So swaps this bid, the meaning of a 2 club bid, and a meaning of a 2 major rebid. So we've been opening spades all the time. It also applies after a harder no trump. If without a convention we just bid 2 spades, this would show a 6 card spade suit and a weakish hand. Okay, and this would show spades and clubs, weak or invitational, and partner would still have the guesswork. Okay, but with the convention, it swaps the meaning of these around such that when you do bid 2 clubs, it doesn't say anything about clubs. This is completely artificial. Okay, it's got one of 2 meanings that it could actually have. Now, it can either have any invitational hand. Did opener want to put their hand type into that invitational range? If you wanted to treat your hand as invitational, you bid 2 clubs. This is your only bid to show an invitational hand. Okay? Or you have a hand that wanted to rebid 2 spades. Okay, so you've got a 6 card spade suit and a minimum hand, 11 to 15. So invitational sort of like good 15, 16 or more points. And minimum 11 to 15. So these are the ranges that I like to break it up into. So if you open a major and your partner responds a no trump, the 2 club bid is now artificial, and it says, partner, I have one of 2 options. The first option is I have a hand with just 6 spades and 11 to 15 points and a minimum hand. I was just going to remove one no trump back to 2 spades. Okay. The second option, it says I have any invitational hand. Okay, so these are your 2 options for 2 clubs. Now, if instead we did bid 2 spades, not that you would on this hand, we've swapped the meanings around. So 2 spades now doesn't say I've got 6 spades, because if you had a minimum hand with 6 spades, we would have put that into the 2 club bid. So this now doesn't say that I've just got a 6 card spade suit, but instead it's swapped around and it says I have spades and clubs. So if you open 1 major, your partner responds a no trump, and you rebid 2 major, it says I have a minimum hand because I didn't go through 2 clubs, and I have this major and clubs. I just want you to pick out of them. So again, what we've done is we've swapped the 2 major rebid with the 2 club bid. So if you've got clubs, you rebid 2 major. And if you've just got a minimum hand with a 6 card major, you bid 2 clubs. So those 2 are swapped around. And this allows us to put some artificiality into it, so that 2 clubs is either the 6 card major or it is any invitational hand. So what this allows you to do is, with hands like this, with 16 points with spades and hearts, we can bid 2 clubs because we have one of those 2 options. We have the any invitational hand. Okay, so this is the basis of the convention. If you bid 2 clubs, this would show any invitational hand. And then it also frees up bids like 2 diamonds or 2 hearts to say, I'm not an invite. I have less than an invite. So it narrows that range. So it would say that if you bid 1 spade 2 hearts, you're 11 to 15 rather than 11 to 17. It says I have a minimum hand and I've got spades and clubs, spades and hearts. Or if you bid 2 diamonds, it would say I'm a minimum hand with spades and diamonds. Now what this does is when we go back to that problem that responder had, is it reduces the problem that they have, because they don't need to raise nearly as often. Unless they have the best of the best, will they actually raise. So this convention helps solve that problem by reducing the judgment or the guesswork that the responder actually has to use, because instead of overlapping the weak and invitational hands together, we've actually separated them out. So any invitational hand whatsoever by opener would start with a 2 club bid. And again, 2 clubs says I have either of these 2 options. Number 1 is I have 6 of my major and a minimum hand, 11 to 15. The second option is I have any invitational hand, so good 15 up to bad 18 points, and and I'll describe what sort of invitational hand I have to you later. So these are your two options. This is how opener shows this convention. So on this hand, we would open 1 spade and would bid 2 clubs for starters. If we looked at this hand has just 11 points, so we'd start with 1 spade, and partner bids 1 no trump. And the way we show a minimum hand with 6 spades is we bid 2 clubs. Okay, we haven't shown that we've got our 6 spades, but we'll get there in a little bit. If I bring up another hand, this hand has 14 points in a 6-card spade suit, so we'd open 1 spade. Partner bids 1 no trump. And again, we wanted to say that we're minimum with 6 spades, so our first bid is 2 clubs. Okay, and if I bring up another one, this one we have 16 points and a 5-5 shape, so we're invitational, so it would start with 1 spade. Partner bids 1 no trump, and any invitational hand would start with 2 clubs. Okay, so there's just a few examples of the types of hands that would actually bid 2 clubs in this sequence. Okay, so how does responder actually continue after the 2 club bid is the next issue. Okay, so before I get there, just a couple of more hands. So this time it goes 1 spade and partner bids 1 no trump. How would we describe this hand? We've got 13 points, 5 spades, 5 clubs. We can't bid 2 clubs anymore because this isn't invitational. It doesn't have a 6-card spade suit. So instead what we do is we bid 2 spades, which is alertable. Both 2 clubs and 2 spades are alertable, by the way. This says I've got 11 to 15 points and I've got at least 5 spades and at least 5 clubs. Please choose between them. Okay, so this is the common bid that if you play this convention is very easy to forget. So this is the one that you have to it's the unusual one. When you're just playing, you could forget this pretty easily, but when you think that you've swapped the 2 club and the 2 spade bid around, you might be able to remember this and realize that this doesn't show 6-card spade suit, because what do we do with a 6-card spade suit? We bid 2 clubs. So this doesn't show 6-card spade suit anymore. It says I've got spades and clubs and a minimum hand. And another example of this, this time we've got a 5-4-3-1 with 13 points. So we'd open a spade, and when partner bids a no trump, we're unbalanced, so we'd just bid 2 spades and say a minimum with spades and clubs, please choose between them, unless you've got some really drastic hand you want to show. Okay, so it's easy to forget that when a partner rebids 2 of a major, that it shows that major and clubs rather than a 6-card major. So you want, when playing this, make sure this is the one that you genuinely remember, because it's easy to forget. So make notes of this one, highlight it, whatever you need to do. Okay, so let's now look from the other perspective. So when we're a responder, how do we actually answer this? So If partner opens one heart and we bid one no trump, if partner bids two clubs, what do we actually do over this? Okay, so it's pretty simple. Partner has two types of hands. They either have a weak hand with a 6-card major, 11 to 15, or they have any invitational hand. And what we do first is we try and tell partner, would we accept an invite? Okay, so what we want to accept an invite is any 8 or more high card points. So here, with 7 high card points, we would not accept an invite. So the way we accept an invite is by bidding 2 diamonds. Again, this is completely artificial, says nothing about diamonds. It just says I have 8 or more points and I would accept your invite if you have that invitational hand. If we bid anything else, it says we've got less than 8 points. So 6 or 7, maybe 5, like whatever you respond on. Less than 8 points, typically 6 or 7. So the way we respond to this is if we don't have 8 or more points, what we do is we just assume that partner had the weak hand with 6 hearts. So if partner, what would you bid if partner, without the convention playing, had just rebid 2 hearts? Okay, say we were just going back to basic bridge. What would you bid if you've got less than 8 points? So here, we would pass. If you had a singleton heart, you would pass. So what we do with this convention, because we've swapped it around, this is the way I like to think about it, is what would you do if your partner had a 6-card heart suit and a minimum hand? Where would you want to play? So when they bid like this, here, if I have 1 or 2 hearts and a weak hand, all I want to do is play in 2 hearts. So this is the most common bid that you'd do, is go back to your partner's major. And it says I've got less than 8 points and I've got like 1 or 2 of the major for you. I don't want to accept an invite and I would just pass there. So this is what you'd bid on this hand. Say, I'm rejecting your invite, and yeah. So once you bid, if you don't want to bid 2 hearts, but you want to bid something else, like say 3 clubs or 3 diamonds, or 3 diamonds, or 2 no trumps, all of these bids are less than 8 points, because the only bid that you make with 8 or more points is 2 diamonds. Okay, so 2 no trumps, 3 clubs, and 3 diamonds are all less than 8 points and weak. So 3 clubs says I've got 6 or more clubs and I really don't like hearts. 3 diamonds says I've got 6 or more diamonds and I really don't like hearts. And 2 no trumps would say I've got less than 8 points and I've actually got both minors. So pick your better minor. But all of those are pretty unusual. The most common bids that you would make is either 2 diamonds saying I've got 8 or more points, or you go back to partner's major very often. So here, 2 hearts would say that I've got less than 8 points and I've got 1 or 2 hearts for you. If you had the weak hand with 6 hearts, I was just going to pass you there. Okay, so let's look at another example. So here, we've got 8 points with 5 clubs and 4 diamonds. Partner opens 1 heart, and we bid 1 no trump. So now when they bid 2 clubs, they either got 6 hearts and 11 to 15 points, or they have any invitational hand. So what we do, first off, is do we have 8 or more points? Yes, we do. The way we show that is we just bid 2 diamonds to say, yes, I've got 8 or more points. Any hand with 8 or more points. Now, basically what partner does over this when we say we have a hand that's willing to accept the invite, they first tell us, do they have the invitational hand or not? If they just bid 2 hearts, this says, by the way, I didn't have the invitational hand. It's nice that you would have accepted that, but I've just got a weak hand with 6 hearts and 11 to 15 points. In which case, if they bid like that, we can just pass. If they bid anything else other than 2 of a major, here, we are now in a game forcing auction, and they just bid naturally, saying that they have this type of invite. So if we open it up and show all the hands, on this hand, I've got 17 points with a 6-card heart suit, So the way they would bid it is they have to jump to 3 hearts. They can't just bid 2 hearts anymore. They have to jump to 3 hearts because 2 hearts would be their weak hand. So here, they'd bid to 3 hearts and we would raise to 4 hearts on this. But notice that on this hand, if you weren't playing this convention, the North hand's got a tricky rebid. They've got 17 points with a 6-card heart suit. They would probably jump to 3 hearts, but if we were a really minimum hand, they would want to have stayed in 2 hearts. But by playing this convention, they get to find out whether or not you would have been able to accept the invite before needing to actually jump. So sometimes Gazilli would allow you to stay low and stay in 2 hearts when you're weak, and actually get to 4 hearts when you're actually going to accept the invite. Okay, so this one, if you're playing 2/1, you'd go a heart pass, a no trump maybe. You might have bid 2 clubs, but let's just stick with a no trump. If you're playing to a standard, you'd bid 2 clubs on this anyway. So here, if partner bids 2 clubs, any invite or 6-card hearts minimum hand, first question, would we accept the invite? Yes, so we'd bid 2 diamonds. So this just says any hand with 8 or more points. And if you're playing 2/1, it's 8 to 12. Now, if partner bids 2 hearts, they're weak. They had 11 to 15 points and a minimum hand. Now, if you are playing 2/1, you can still bid on again with hands like this. You might bid 2 no trumps and say, hey, I've got 11, 12 points. Do you want to go on? But if partner bids anything else other than 2 of a major, say they bid 2 spades, we're in a game force. They said they had an invitational hand. They know we don't have spades, but they're showing hearts and spades and a hand that was good 15 to bad 18, and just trying to work out where do we actually want to play this hand. So we're officially in a game force after this. Okay, and again, 1 heart, pass, 1 no trump, 2 clubs, any invite or 6-card hearts minimum hand. So here we've got 9 points, so we would accept the invite, so we'd bid 2 diamonds, says nothing about diamonds. And again, partner would be able to then go on to describe, were they that minimum hand? If so, they'll just rebid 2 of a major. If they're stronger than that, they would bid any new suit, and we'd try and work out where we want to go from there. Alright, so a bit more on how opener should actually continue after this sort of auction. So let's look at this one. Here we've got 12 high card points and a 6-card spade suit. So we'd open 1 spade, and when partner bids a no trump. So here we want to get to 2 spades. Again, we can't bid 2 spades directly, because what does that show? It shows spades and clubs and a minimum hand. At least 5 spades, at least 4 clubs, 11 to 15. So we can't bid 2 spades. So the way we do this is we go through the 2 club bid, and then find out, does partner have 8 or more points? That's their first bid. Now, if they bid 2 diamonds, which again is alertable, says I have a hand with 8 or more points, all we do is go back to 2 spades and say, I actually just had the 11 to 15 with 6-card spades. If I'd bid anything else, even 2 hearts, we would be in a game force, and I'd be describing what sort of invitational hand I had. And we already know partner's accepting the invite. This is why it's game forcing. If you'd bid anything else other than 2 major. Okay, so here we've got 16 highs with a 6-card spade suit. So we'd start with 1 spade, partner bids 1 no trump. And here we bid 2 clubs because we've got any invitational hand. Now if partner just bids 2 spades, saying they've got less than 8 points, we'd just pass it because we already found out partner wanted to decline the invite. Even if I only had a 5-card spade suit, I'd still pass this very frequently because we know partner's weak, and when you don't want to go onto game, you just want to try and keep the auction low. So even if I only had an invitational hand with 5 spades, I would pass 2 spades here and I wouldn't move on. If instead partner accepts the invite, bids 2 diamonds, what we do is we bid anything else other than 2 major if we were the invite. So here we've got 6 spades, so we'd jump to 3 spades to say I've got a 6-card spade suit, and we're in a game force. And then we get to find out where partner wants to go from there. They could bid 3 no trumps, or they could bid 4 spades. Just got a comment from Ififi. Thanks for helping demystify this convention. I have to work, so unfortunately we'll have to watch the rest after hours. Alright, thanks. Glad you like it. There's a lot to it, but once you understand what the problem is and how you're trying to solve it, you can understand how it actually works. So here, 3 spades, and then partner can choose whether to bid 4 spades or not. And here we go, 1 spade, 1 no trump. And again, we've got an invitational hand, really good one with spades and clubs. So we'd start with 2 clubs. If partner just bid 2 spades, we could let that go. But here, when partner bids 2 diamonds, we can now bid 2 hearts. And this says I have at least 5 spades, at least 4 hearts, and I was an invite. I know you're going to accept. So please, let's go on to game. Tell me which game you want to go on to. And if partner says 2 no trumps, we can then bid 3 spades and say, hey, I've got 6 spades and 4 hearts. Are you sure you still want to try and play in no trumps? So we get to try and solve this issue. So these were all the hands that I wanted to show on this. So just a quick recap of what we actually needed to do. So as opener, when we open one of a major, whether it's 1 heart or 1 spade, and partner responds a no trump, then we can play Gazilli, or the Witch, or modified Gazilli. It's known by lots of names. Whatever you want to call it, I don't care. Alright. Now, the 2 main things with it is we've swapped the 2 club bid and the 2 spade bid, or 2 major bid around. So 2 major now shows that major and clubs and a minimum hand, whereas 2 clubs says I've got either a hand with 6 or more of my major and wick, or I have any invitational hand. If you've got the other bids of 2 diamonds or 2 hearts, these are now minimum hands as well, which means it reduces the burden that partner has on whether to raise or not. So it removes the invitational hands out of these, so you can pass 2 diamonds a lot more frequently, or you can pass 2 hearts a lot more frequently. So these are how opener rebids over that. If you bid 2 spades, 2 hearts, or 2 diamonds, then the responder just bids very naturally over that. If instead you bid 2 clubs, the first question that they like to answer is, would they accept an invite? Do they have 8 or more points? And if they do, they bid 2 diamonds. If they don't, if they bid, say, 2 hearts, or 2 spades, or 2 no trumps, or 3 clubs, or 3 diamonds, they're saying they have a weak hand. So all of them would be less than 8 points. Your go-to bid is going back to 2 of partner's major. Okay, it's basically said, if you bid 1 spade, 2 spades without this convention, I would have passed it. I have 1 or 2 of your suit, and I've less than 8 points. I have a pretty garbage hand for you. Well, let's just try and get out of this auction when we can. If instead they bid 2 diamonds, showing 8 or more points, then opener, if they were just the weak hand, they go back to their major to say, hey, I've got 6 or more of my suit, 11 to 15, where do you want to go? And this will usually get passed unless the responder's really good. If instead you bid anything else, such as on this hand where you'd bid 3 clubs, it says, I had an invitational hand. We're now in a game force because I know you're going to accept it, and we're bidding naturally. So here I have spades and clubs and a hand that wants to force. Anyway, that's all I wanted to cover today on Gazilli, the Witch, or modified Gazilli, whatever you want to call it. It's somewhat complicated, but basically what you have to understand is what you're doing is you're swapping a 2 club rebid with the 2 major rebid, and allowing you to separate out your invitational hands and bid your invitational hands in a different way. That's all I was going to cover. Few questions that you want to discuss with your partnership, because there's different ways of playing it, is what are bids such as 2 no trumps, or anything at the 3 level, 3 clubs, 3 diamonds, 3 hearts, 3 spades, because these shouldn't be invitational hands anymore. Well, they can be invitational hands. Some people play them as 5/5 invites. Other people play them as game forces. I like to treat them as game forces. But there's lots of things that you can do and different ways that you can actually organize it, because all your invitational hands can go through 2 clubs. But there are different options there, but I tend to treat these jumps as game forces. But another option for jumping to the 3 level are like 5-5 distributional invites. Okay, so that's your first option. The other thing that you want to discuss with your partner is what happens if they double. Is anything on? So here I'd play Gazilli's off, because you have a new option with good hands, which is to redouble, so bidding new suits doesn't need to be. And what if the auction gets competitive beforehand? So what if it went 1 heart, 1 spade, 1 no trump? Is it still on? I would probably still play it on, because there's a decent range of 1 no trump there, but some people might choose not to. Or what about 1 heart double 1 no trump? What about after this? Do you still want to play it on? So these are the questions that you want to sort out with your partner. And a quick reminder, this is the bid that is most often forgotten, which shows this major and clubs and a minimum hand. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this featured lesson on Gazilli, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.